Hi everyone. So, quite a few of you asked me to take a look at the PlayStation 4's remote play feature. Now, what this functionality allows you to do is to use a PlayStation Vita to stream your games from your PlayStation 4 directly to the PlayStation Vita. Now, in previous consoles where we've tried this technology out, for instance on the PlayStation 3 with Vita or with the original PSP, it didn't work particularly well. It was tied and limited to only a few games, those from the PlayStation 1 catalogue or whatever it was, or the PSP catalogue, and it just didn't work very well. Now, the kind of standout feature really on the PlayStation 4 is the ability to stream your games from the PlayStation 4 directly to the Vita, and it works remarkably well. The pairing process takes seconds. All you have to do is on your PlayStation 4, go to the remote play option, it will give you an 8-digit code, you pop in the 8-digit code when you're prompted on your PS Vita using the remote play functionality for PS4, and it just configures itself. Then anytime you start remote play, it will hook directly onto your PlayStation 4 over your Wi-Fi network and just works. So this is the PlayStation 4, it's currently a few rooms away from me. This is all running over Wi-Fi, even the PlayStation 4 is not on a wired connection. And it works absolutely fine. So if we fire up a bit of Shadowfall. Now, bearing in mind, this is Killzone Shadowfall for the PlayStation 4, now running on the Vita. And it's not actually running directly on the Vita, what it's doing is it's streaming the content directly from the PlayStation 4 over the Wi-Fi and providing the picture and controls on the Vita. Now, there are a few caveats to that, or caveats, depending on how you want to pronounce it, but because the Vita doesn't have the same number of buttons available as a full-fledged PlayStation 4 controller, some strange compromises have to be made with some games. So for instance, what we're traditionally used to with any kind of shooter is having a second set of buttons. We have our shoulders and our triggers. Now in this case with the Vita, all we have are the triggers, as it were, which are the shoulder buttons. Now, how that's been got round is if you press your PlayStation button on the Vita control unit itself, you can go to Button Guide, and then what it will do, it will show you what the developer has mapped for the remote play functionality. Each game is different, each shooter we've tried is being different as well, slightly annoying. So far, Killzone has kind of got the mix just right, I think, using the on-screen controls for L2 and R2, the R2 and L2 controls from there are effectively mapped to the front, so if you can see there's the actual traditional controller and they will be mapped to the front of the PS Vita. L1 and R1 are still your shoulder buttons on the back, and R3 and L3 are effectively triggered by using the touchscreen on the back of the unit. So that's the controls. Let's just go back, and what we're going to do, we're going to jump into some multiplayer. Why not? Let's do something really difficult, as it were. Because it's not just about being able to play, the latest single-player games remote play, but, can we play multiplayer games as well? The simple answer is yes, So I'll be back just as soon as this is loaded. Okay, so this is Killzone just loading up now. Now, all of the kind of buttons are fairly standardised from this point of view. So if we press X, things are mapped quite easily. And then I can just grab my control sticks and off we go. Now, one thing I found quite interesting with remote play is because the games themselves tend to be set up for the PlayStation 4 controller, which doesn't have as much play in the thumbsticks, it will take you just a little bit of getting used to. That you can end up just with a little bit too much sensitivity in some of the first-person shooters, so you end up kind of wildly missing your mark. Just takes a little bit of practice just to kind of get used to how that's kind of working out. Just to bear in mind, because I'm recording at the same time as talking and trying to play, it's not the easiest angle to actually play a game from. I'm sat off on about a 30-degree angle from the screen currently, so not the easiest thing to actually demo gameplay footage that is Twitch like this, but you get the idea. The one thing I found when I've been playing remote play on PS4 is no lag whatsoever. It is rock solid throughout, and it just works beautifully well. Let me just turn this sound down a little bit. Obviously with the Vita, you're dealing with a lower resolution screen, around a 940 I think it is, compared to obviously the 1080 output that you would get from the PlayStation 4 natively. So that does mean that you kind of get a drop in clarity, I would say. And for some first-person shooters like Battlefield, that does become a little bit more of a problem, because obviously things are a lot further away from you, and they turn out to be little teeny tiny dots on the Vita screen. But again, it's not something that I found that you couldn't kind of adapt to over time, or use a bit of guesswork. Let's get in. But it's something worth bearing in mind. Not all games are going to translate perfectly to the Vita control system for remote play, just because of the nature of how the game actually works. That said though, a little bit of adaptation on your part, and you'll probably find it's absolutely fine. I had great fun playing a bit of Battlefield last night on this, and it's just remarkably well executed in my opinion. There is zero lag here that I could find. Playing a pinball game, I was able to notice a bit of a round trip if I was watching the TV at the same time. You can see the action happen on screen, and then it's kind of on your TV screen, then it's relayed to the Vita a fraction of a second later, which was a little disconcerting. But actually when you're playing a game and not watching the TV, if you're just watching the Vita screen action, then everything's absolutely fine. You don't get any sense that there's any lag here at all, really. Now, one thing to mention is the remote play functionality is supposed to work over the internet as well, but so far I've not been able to get it to work. A lot of it, I think, comes down to the various port settings that need to be opened up on the router, but so far on our Virgin Media Hub we've not been able to get the internet remote play functionality to work. That said, running it over your local Wi-Fi network, as it were, absolutely no problem. That's how this is being displayed here. Now, one thing that's worth mentioning, because it's quite an interesting thing from my point of view, is you can access absolutely any part of the PlayStation 4 system directly from the remote play, apart from media. So if we try and say boot up Love Film, what we'll actually get is an alert that basically says, you're blocked from doing that, which just strikes me as being a little bit odd, really. Presumably this is because of various copy protection mechanisms that have to be enforced to make content companies happy, but it still kind of strikes me as being a little bit strange why we can't stream our content directly to the Vita using apps that are not available actually on Vita. It would have been a really nice extra little feature from my point of view. Certainly I would have thought it wouldn't cause any major problems, bearing in mind that it's a one-to-one stream and it's being secured end-to-end. The remote play functionality can also be used for second screen functionality as well. If you're not familiar with this, second screen is the idea that you might be playing a computer game, then you get your mobile phone or your second screen, like a tablet or your Vita, out your pocket, and you can then access additional information whilst you're playing a game. Now, it might be an expanded version of the world map that you then can have sat in front of you while you're playing, or it could be the ability to interact, for instance, Battlefield style, with a whole map as a commander, dropping things for your troops. So far, not managed to find a single game that actually uses second screen at launch. So there you go. What we found is that games companies like the independents like EA, Ubisoft, etc. are providing second screen functionality but through their own third-party apps. They're not using the native built-in functionality that, say, Sony is providing or even Microsoft are providing. Fair enough, they want to keep their user bases, etc. But it would have been nice to see tight integration there, so one app to rule them all. Let's just jump back into remote play. You can quickly see it's a very fast process once you've got this set up. It did take me probably 3 attempts putting the code in, and then eventually it just went, oh, found your PS4, found the Vita, hooking up, and there we go. So it did take me a couple of goes just to get it initially started, but once you do, it's a very, very quick and easy process. And as you can see, you get an alert that pops up whenever you attempt to play any content that you are not entitled to. The one thing that I do wish they'd done is enable the touch control. Why they didn't is beyond me, but it does mean that you have to use the physical buttons to get into content. A slightly strange thing, but there you go. Let's quickly have a look at Resogun, because this is a fast-paced game, and you know, if Resogun plays without any lag, then you're going to have no problems with any game at all. Say, there is a resolution drop because this is being streamed to the Vita with the lower resolution screen of the Vita hardware, but at no point does it ever feel like it's overly compromised. Certain games become slightly more difficult to play purely because of the, you know, draw distance, as it were. If you're playing something like Battlefield and you're trying to snipe and there's a guy half a mile away across the map, best of luck playing that on your Vita, is what I would say. It is simply too small a screen. So let's just fire up a little bit of this. You can see when I touch the back of the screen, can you see this marker popping up? And what that's doing, it's telling me where my fingers are. basically at any time. As I say, some of the games do a really poor job at mapping these controls. Battlefield especially means that you accidentally can slip your finger and end up throwing grenades and all sorts. Not a great control system. For my mind, Killzone so far has provided the best Vita remote play experience for a shooter. Really, really nice controls, and it's well thought out and logical. It actually works, basically. So this is obviously Resogun, probably one of my favourite games on the PlayStation 4, and certainly on remote play as well. It just works beautifully. You can see this slight drop in quality I was talking about. Things feel slightly softer, and part of that is because of the lower resolution screen of the Vita, lower pixels per inch count, but also there is some compression having to be done here in order to have one-to-one map controls, so that when I press left, the PS4 sees that command instantly, gets on with it, and then sends me the video footage back, and all of that has to be compressed, unfortunately. So you will find, a compressed image is being sent down. Personally, if you were to compare this to Vita footage natively running on the device, yes, it is a little softer, but you are getting vastly better lighting, texturing, and so on made available through the PS4's raw performance power. It'll be really interesting to see if we get this remote play functionality working really well across the internet and what the limitations there are. You would hope that if you're on a private internet connection like around at your mate's house, it would work absolutely fine. But a lot of variables involved in something like this. For instance, how good the internet connection is at the time, how good the Wi-Fi connection is at the time, and so on. So, it's always going to be a bit of a mixed bag, but we found this remote play functionality could possibly be PlayStation 4's killer feature and then some. It really is a triumph, especially given that it actually works. And it's very rare when we see a new piece of technology coming through for the consoles, like Kinect, like PlayStation Eye and all of this, and they make big promises. And actually when you get to launch, you find out that no, there's too many exceptions to the rule as to why it will work, or won't work in the case maybe. Here, Sony have delivered exactly on the promise. They have made the Vita a useful device, and they've given the PlayStation 4 an extra leg up against the competition by far. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Do please remember to like and comment, and if you'd like to, please subscribe. You can also visit our website and download our Android app. If you do subscribe, you'll be getting a daily dose of the latest tech news, hardware reviews, Android games, consoles, and basically an honest opinion direct from the UK. Stay tuned, stay Androidizen.